Everyone, welcome. My name is Kelly Yazdi here with Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys interview here on YouTube. I have the absolute pleasure of getting to interview my friend Cris Sommer Simmons. Cris, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I always want to talk to you, so it's great. I mean, we both live in
I
Hawaii,
know.
but you're on one island, I'm on the other island. People don't realize we just can't drive over and hang out. We have to fly.
Well, I am excited to talk to you about all things happening. And I'd love to just start with, our big question is how did you even get into motorcycling in the first place, Cris?
So many years. I'm proud to say I'm 66 years old. Okay, I
Mhm.
started riding motorcycles when I was 9 on the back of my stepdad's Honda, and I just fell in love. I can still remember the first time I went on a motorcycle, how I felt and how much in love that I really was. The poor
Mm,
guy couldn't even pull the bike out. Every time I hear that bike, I would just come flying out of the house. And I still remember when I was like 13, my neighbor had a Sportster, and I remember the sound of that bike when I first heard that bike. And I was just like, what is that? And my mom was very, very supportive of me riding motorcycles. Believe it or not, most parents people tell me that their parents were not.
right.
My mom was very supportive. When I was in high school, she bought me a Yamaha Twin Jet 100 was my first bike,
Mhm.
and I didn't know any other women who rode, like none. All the neighborhood boys, I was like one of the boys. I mean, I had 5 brothers and sisters, so I was always like one of the boys anyway. I played
Mhm.
a lot of sports and did a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do because I was a girl, I guess. I just started riding and riding with all the guys and kept riding all through. I didn't ride a lot in high school. I guess it wasn't cool to have dirt under your fingernails. So I stopped for a few
Mhm.
years, and then I met my first husband when I was 17. I met him through motorcycles. So someone told me, "Oh, you have to meet this guy. He has motorcycles." So I started riding with him, and then pretty soon, one day, he had a shovelhead, Harley shovelhead. He said, "Here, I know you can ride. You want to ride this? Just go ahead and take it." So he left
Mhm.
it running, and he got all. I think I was 19,
Mhm.
maybe 18, and I got on that bike and I sat there and just, like this an 8 inch over front end, kicked out a little bit. And I just sat there. I was like at like 118 pounds or something, a little skinny thing. And I just
Right.
took off and I went around. I was going around. I was probably gone for like a half hour, you know. And like, well, why did you tell me this is so easy to ride these big bikes? I had no idea. I thought, I mean, you don't carry it. You know how it is. You ride a big bike.
It's true.
But I
Mhm.
was a smaller person. So, but it was a love affair. And I rode all over the country and met one other woman, I think in the early 80s, really.
Mhm.
There weren't any that I knew of.
There weren't many, right?
I mean, there were, as I found out later, when I branched out more out of my area where I lived. I'm from the Chicago suburbs. There
Mhm.
were groups like the Motor Maids and Women in the Wind and Women on Wheels. I mean, there were all these other groups, Women's International Motorcycle Association. So they were there. I just didn't really, we weren't connected. It wasn't like it is now where you have the internet. We could just go Google things. We had to actually
Right.
things up and write letters and stuff. And it's cool because I have some of these letters from, like Louise Sherbin, I got to be friends with. She's really well known. She was one of the first motor maids. So we were like pen
Mhm.
pals.
It's really cool that your mom was so supportive. I can honestly tell you my mom was not, my dad was. But I had told my mom I was gonna go get my bartending license, when I went to actually go get my motorcycle license, and she was like, "Why are you going with, in all leather?" I was like, "Well, it's probably gonna be cold in there, and I don't know."
Yeah, my mom was cool about it. My mom was great. But my dad flew airplanes. My dad had an airplane before he had a car.
Oh,
Okay.
that's so
And he
cool.
sold it. And my oldest brother, sailed his sailboat across the Atlantic Ocean by himself. So I think I come from a family of people who just do stuff.
It's
Yeah.
definitely in your blood and in your DNA, and just like you said, when you got on that bike and you felt it, it's almost like, and I feel so much resonance with that because it's almost like something biochemically
Mm,
ignited in you, and you're like,
Mhm.
this is it. I am meant to be doing this,
Yeah,
right?
I feel at home.
Yes.
On a
Oh,
motorcycle, I feel comfortable. I mean, I'm always aware of my surroundings and maybe I'm like, "Oh god, there's this or that going on," but I have confidence in myself as a rider that,
mhm.
I've been doing it a long time, and sometimes I have to go, "Okay, you gotta pay attention because it's not," you know. And now I
Right.
ride a lot of hand shift bikes and foot clutch bikes. That's pretty much what I ride now. Is all vintage stuff, and that's even a little more going on than just your hand clutch and stuff. So
I would almost say that's a whole other level of awareness and presence that has to be involved in that kind of riding.
I was kind of naive because in 2009 I got a phone call from a friend of mine, Matt Olson. He said, "Hey, we're going to do this ride. It's called the Motorcycle Cannonball. We're going to go cross country on 100-year-old motorcycles." And he knows that my husband has a collection of older bikes, and I have a couple. And he said, "Why don't can Pat go?" My husband, Pat been riding for many years too, but he works a lot. He's on the road. He's in a band, as you know, and the Doobie Brothers. So he's like, I can't go on that. I can't. I have no time. Why don't you do it?" And I was like, "Sure." I'm not knowing how to even ride the damn thing. I mean, I've never been on anything that old. I've ridden panheads and stuff like that with mousetrap clutches and things like, but never a hand shift bike. So it was a real learning curve, but it took me about a
Mhm.
year to get, really where I felt like I could ride it. Just to get it running. We had this 1915 Harley that had been sitting for like 35 years. And we got it running enough for I had like 80, I think I had 80 miles on the hand shift before I hit the starting line for the Cannonball, which is Kitty Hawk, North Carolina to LA.
Amazing. Wow, that's so far.
I was looking around all these like big names in the vintage world, I'm like, wow. And I'm like, there's 46 bikes, and there's me, one American woman, and then one woman from Germany. There was two ladies on the whole ride, and she didn't speak English, so we pointed at our motorcycles and smiled a lot. So,
Yeah.
and I got lost as soon as I left the starting line. I had no idea how to read the roll chart thing with the directions, and but I
Mhm.
made it. I made it across, and I came in like 20th place out of 46. I finished.
That's
So
so cool, Chris.
it was life changing for me because I
Mhm.
got so much confidence, as you
Mm.
know, when you do things that challenge yourself and to step out of your comfort zone at any age.
But sometimes it brings you to places you've never seen or experienced before. It shows you a part of yourself that, you may not have ever known that you had, right? And all
Yeah,
in all,
Kelly, I was 52 years old when I did that, and I was
that's so cool.
now I've had like arthritis in my back. I've done 4 cannonballs, a cross country chase, and a couple other long distance rides on my 15. I think I had 10,000 miles on my 15 Harley. Which
Mhm.
is not a lot for some people, but when you're going 45 miles an hour and you're like,
Yeah, right.
I love the history of the old bikes. I love the the whole thing about getting them running. There's nothing like hearing a bike come to life after been sleeping in your garage for 30 years. And,
Mhm.
you work on it enough to get it running, and it smokes a lot, and when you get it, but they're really, if they, I just want to know their little stories. Like, where have you been?
Yes.
Who rode you? What's your
Yeah.
story? Like that.
You know, I love that, Chris, and I remember one of the first things, when I had met you, we talked briefly about how you name your motorcycles, and I love that because I
Yeah,
I never
most of them I've named. Yeah, yeah. I have mostly girl motorcycles, but I have a boy motorcycle too. I have a 34 Harley that I named Buddy because my husband got him from Bud Eakins, who was the guy. I don't know if you know Bud Eakins. He's pretty famous. He was the guy who did the stunts in the movie with Steve McQueen where he jumped over the fence and all that stuff. But
Mhm,
Bud was a stunt rider and just pretty well known LA guy. So I
mhm.
have his bike and I named it after him.
It's kinda like having, like a kid or I guess like a pet in a way. It just like there's a
Mhm.
relationship that you have with the motorcycle, any of us who are involved with them, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you just love and cherish them, right?
I
And
do.
it's
Yeah, I love them. They're like my family in a way, and I have such a relationship. Effie, is my 1915, and I love that bike so much. I mean, I actually gave her to my daughter, so she's not even mine. I titled her in my daughter's name because I thought,
Yeah.
well, I want to keep her in the family, but we'll see where that goes.
Yes. What roles have you had in this industry? What jobs have you had? I mean, I know you've done so many things, but I would just love to hear, like, when you
Well,
started working in this industry, what
yeah, I started working in the industry in 1985. Well, actually, I was submitting stuff to magazines, photography and stuff before that. But in 1985, my writing partner, Joe Giovanoni, who worked at the Harley shop, the one girl that I met that worked at the Harley shop, she was actually a parts manager and she rode a chopper and stuff. And she was a little older than me and she was like my mentor and very cool. And we were actually members of Women in the Wind. We started the second chapter of Women in the Wind, a motorcycle club out of Ohio. And we wrote a newsletter. We really loved doing it. We had fun writing this little newsletter. And I said, let's start a magazine.
Mm.
Okay, we do nothing. We knew nothing. We didn't even have a typewriter. I think I borrowed my mom's typewriter. We started it, and I had a on my route. We had a lawyer on my route, so we incorporated. I had a printer on my route, and we put this little 16-page magazine together, and we took it up to Harley because Joe knew some people at the factory in Milwaukee. So we wrote up there. We had our little boards for our magazine, and we said, "Can we use the name Harley?" And they looked at us like, "Okay." You
Yeah. Wow.
they saw that we had this vision about bringing women together and having a magazine for women. It was kind of our thing. We didn't have there was nothing for us really
Mhm.
in the motorcycle publications. So they said yes. And they were wonderful to us and bought ads from us, sent us to media school because we were doing all kinds of interviews at TV shows. And we got a lot of attention because we rode with Malcolm Forbes and Elizabeth Taylor. So
Mhm.
all over like this is when AP would pick up things and put it in 500 newspapers and you would get stuff like that. But we did the magazine. We traveled all over the country to do events and we're really broke because we didn't make much money. Any money we put back into the magazine. It was those
Mhm.
were the days. And
No.
yeah, it was fun. I did it for 5 years. I had a couple of little kids in the meantime, and that was kind of hard for me to balance everything. My kids were small. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do it. I wanted to figure out what could I do to work from home more. So I would be up doing my typesetting and my stuff at night, my typing
Mhm.
and everything. My kids were sleeping, and I did meet the love of my life in Sturgis 35 years ago.
That's so amazing. Congratulations to
Yeah,
you
I
both.
met my husband. He was there doing a concert for Harley, a benefit for muscular dystrophy.
Mhm.
I was like, my friend's like, we need to go. My friend worked for Harley. One of the vice presidents was the one who actually introduced Pat and I together. And he said, why don't you come to the press conference? And I was like, I'm working. I really don't have time for that stuff. I'm trying to sell advertising. We got a t-shirt booth over here and doing this. He goes, but we're gonna have really good food. I swear to God. So I was like, what time should we be there? Because
Mhm.
we're sleeping in somebody's old rental house on the floor in our sleeping bags. We couldn't even afford a hotel. So
Right.
I met him at the press conference and he was very nice. He was sweet. And I thought, wow, I'll tell him I have a couple of kids, because I was divorced already and everything. And from my first husband, but he was like, I love kids. And we got along so great. We're still best friends. And
Mhm.
every day we talk about motorcycles. Somewhere in our conversation,
Yeah.
motorcycling. Okay. I don't know how or what, but there's something. So we are kindred spirits as far as that.
Right. Would you say that couples who, motorcycle together or ride
I got him to
motorcycles
ride
soon?
the Cannonball. He actually rode in 2014, 2016, and 2018. He did three of them. I had to leave him on the side of the road a few times because that's a cannonball. When you break down, I was like, I can't help you. I'm sorry. I gotta go.
Yeah. God, that's so
But
cool.
yeah, we love old bikes and everything to do with them, the history and then I wrote a book in 2009. I have a copy of it here because I don't do that stuff. But it's called The American Motorcycle Girls, 1900 to 1950. I'd always loved the old photos of the women riders, and I used to just throw them in a file. And one day, when I turned 50, I was like, I got to do this. I got to do this book. I'm getting old. So It became just a passion I just did it with so much love, and I met so many cool women. I think 9 of the women in my book were living when I did the book, and now I think Gloria from Mountain Struck is the only one who's still alive. She's gonna be 99 years old on July 7th.
It's so inspirational. I'm so glad you did that. I need to get a copy of your book.
I mean, I just look at the book and I'm just in so awe of some of these women who are doing these things
Mhm.
way back. I mean, women started right. People go, when did women start writing? Women started writing when men started writing.
Totally.
Oh,
It was just wasn't in the spotlight. It wasn't the cool thing to do. It was just like part of, I
yeah,
mean, women just rode, right?
yeah,
Women ride,
they did.
right?
Yeah, and a lot of them were really. I mean, look at Effie Hotchkiss, who I named my bike after.
Mhm.
The same make and model that Effie Hotchkiss rode from New York to San Francisco in 1916 with her mom in the sidecar. Can you imagine what that was like? There's no roads, there's no like gas station. You're not going to go pull into a gas station and go, sit back and I mean, you're
Yeah,
looking for
totally.
gas. You're looking for direction. There were no maps. There were no real roads. It was mud and ruts and stuff like
Right.
that. So I just
Gosh, I
love
mean,
that.
and talk about pioneering, right? I mean, like you said, I mean, it's an interesting concept to think about, pioneering the motorcycle industry and community and culture now, right here in the 21st century, like these years, right? But you think back to,
Mhm.
geez, 60 years ago. I mean, there's really something so incredibly special about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I remember riding to Sturgis for the first time in 1981, and I saw one other woman. Right? Think about that. Now we ride to Sturgis and we just see packs of women, and it's like, I feel pretty good about that now. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's so cool. It is so cool, and and I've had the pleasure of course, seeing you, at the Sturgis rally, at the Sturgis Buffalo Chip through Biker Bells. I think that was originally how we had got to meet, and I know that you've been involved with Biker Bells, really since the beginning, right?
Yeah, there were a handful of us that started it. It was Laura Clock and Gloria Struck and her daughter Lori and Meg McDonough and myself. And I think my husband was the first biker bell dude.
Oh,
The first one. A lot of them, I know.
uh-huh.
But what I
Oh,
love about Sturgis is like a lot of people. It's kind of funny because a lot of people obviously know who he is wherever we go. But we go to motorcycle stuff and they walk up to me
naturally.
as they walk by him. And I look at him and he's like, he loves it.
Mhm.
Funny.
Yeah, some normalcy for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. And Chris, you wrote a children's book too, didn't you?
Yes. I actually read it to my 3 grandsons the other day.
That's so sweet, and it's about motorcycling, yeah?
Yeah, it's called Patrick Wants to Ride. It's about a little boy who wants to ride a motorcycle, but he's not big enough and he needs to wait till he can
Mhm.
reach the pegs and all that kind of stuff. And I self-published that in 1994 and then no one would, I tried to get someone to help me publish it and everybody turned me down. So I just worked over a
Mhm.
little bit of money to, I found a printer. I had some experience from my magazine days of doing the layout and everything. And I did.
Mhm.
I got Harley to carry it in their 600 dealerships and sold 20,000 copies of it.
That
Little
is so cool.
book. And I still have a couple. I have a couple laying around here, but my grandsons have no idea. It's like my son. My oldest. I have three. I have 3 kids, 2 boys. My oldest son. One time I was
Mhm.
doing an interview and they were asking him, "What do you think about your mom riding a motorcycle?" And he said, I don't know what the big deal is because all my women friends would come over and they rode motorcycles, from Women in the
Yeah,
Wind. But he didn't understand what was a big deal because all women they
right.
rode motorcycles.
Mhm.
So I think my grandsons will be the same. Now they see a motorcycle, they think about me.
I think part of what we love to do, I mean, beyond just motorcycling, right, is sort of breaking that mold, right? I think that's one of the things that I know
Yeah.
myself and right, many women is really breaking that stereotype, breaking that mold. And when you see, kids like your grandsons, right, being able to like to them, seeing women ride is no big deal. I mean, I think what ultimately that's what I would love for it to be, right? I would love for everyone to kind of see it like that. It's not just men ride or women ride or whatnot. It's just Everyone can ride.
And it was so fun for me in the last couple of years in Sturgis. I mean, I miss Jessie Combs so much. Jessie was she
Mhm.
was a good friend and so inspirational. And I love that the foundation, what they're doing now at the events where they'll come and they'll have like welding classes. And, I actually, I took a welding class. I made
You
this,
did.
it's not doing good, but I'm proud of it. But, I mean, again, I met all these younger women who are welders and builders and mechanics. And, I just love that to see that the foundation is in Jesse's is still doing doing so much to reach out and to have
Mhm.
available. And I hope they keep doing it. It was so fun.
Thank God for motorcycling because that's what brought Jesse into my life. That's what brought you into my life. And I just feel so incredibly grateful for these friendships and these experiences that I've personally been able to have, right, over the years I've been involved with it because it's really been life changing. When I first got involved in motorcycling, I mean, I had gotten my license at 18 years old because that was my 18th birthday present to myself. And I remember watching, Linda Carter as Wonder Woman riding a motorcycle, like back when I used to watch that TV show, or like Angelina Jolie and Tomb Raider. And I was like, oh, women who ride is so cool. I want to do this. But I had no idea it could be a job. I had no idea like I could get involved in that industry. And it wasn't until I started doing some stunt work because I was a woman who rode, right, that I was like, wow, what a cool community. Wow, this can be a job, right? And similar to you, it's like you kind of have worn multiple hats in the industry, but overall, you continue to be involved in it because you're so fueled by this passion you have for riding and the people in it,
Yeah,
right?
it's about the motorcycles for sure. But sometimes I
Mhm.
think it's almost about more about the people.
Mhm.
Because everyone, I think of my closest friends, and most of them I met through motorcycling.
Yeah.
My both of my husbands, you know, I mean, my children, I don't know, I don't know, they wouldn't be here. I mean, it's just kind of like and I remember just being that 9-year-old girl, and it's still, I still feel the same way about them.
Mhm.
I look at them, they're so beautiful, and the things that they've taken me on these wonderful journeys across the country, and the things I've gotten to see, the places I've been, and the
Mhm.
friends I've met, all the journeys, and the cold weather and the rain and the
Mhm.
breakdown. I mean, I talked to Gloria, who's like almost 99, and she's like, you're making memories. You're making memories out there.
I
And
love
they're like,
that.
and you're not going to
Yeah,
remember the sunny, nice days, but you're going to remember, being riding, freezing your butt off, or being soaking,
totally.
or getting lost, or
I love that you said that, Chris. One of my fondest memories riding motorcycles, I was actually Jesse was with me. We were hosting one of our Ride Wild events at that time. Our organization was called Wild Gypsy Tour, and we were hosting a Wild Gypsy event in Colorado. And we probably had about 15 women staying with us, and it was a Friday. And we were making our way to this dealership. And so Jesse and I were leading the ride with these women, and it just started pouring. And it wasn't just like water or rain, it was cold, it was wet. It was just awful. No one wanted to ride, but we were like, we have to get there. We have to get to this destination, right? And so as we were riding, we pull out onto the freeway, and I look over, I see Jesse on my right, and there's this rainbow, and I look at her and I'm like, look, look, and she turns over. And it was like the most beautiful thing. A double rainbow ended up popping out in the middle of the sky. And I'm watching Jessie, and she's just like, yes, fuck yes. You know what I mean? She's like just celebrating life. She's jamming on her music. And here we are, cold and wet. We've got like another 13 women behind us. We're just trying to get from A to B. And I just had this ethereal moment of like, wow, this is what it's about. It's about making these memories. It's about these magical experiences with these awesome people on these awesome vessels. Like, this is what it's about. I don't even care if I get there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It just,
that's right. It's the
it
journey.
was, it's
Always
the
the
journey.
destination. It's the journey, and
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to have so many of those moments, and I appreciate every one of them, and I'm grateful for
Yeah.
everything that I've gotten to do, and I know I'm lucky, and I just try to pay it forward, and try to
Mhm.
mentor younger women now and I still do some speaking. I'm going to go out to that women's motorcycle event in Chicago, the
Amazing.
Women's Riders thing. I'm going to do some talking out there. I'm going to interview Gloria. That's going to be fun.
Oh,
And I don't know if I'm going to be in Sturgis. I skipped Daytona this year. I also
mhm,
do for my husband, and I'm
mhm.
his personal assistant, and we have a little big tour ahead this summer and fall. So I'll be out with him. But I do both. I mix it together. My motorcycles and my music thing, and it's been my life for so many years now.
I'm excited to see, where your journey brings you this year. And, I'd love to ask you, Chris,
Mhm.
I'd love to hear your advice for anyone that's interested in getting involved in motorcycles, right? Whether that's you just want to become a rider, or if it's something like you want to get involved in the industry. I mean, what kind of advice would you give to those folks who are interested?
A lot of people. I mean, I remember learning how to ride when they didn't have motorcycle safety courses. My stepdad taught me, and I taught four of my five brothers. But now it's like I always tell people, go to the motorcycle safety course, find it, call around Motorcycle Safety Foundation, take a class, take an experienced rider's class. I took one, and I learned things after riding for like 25 years. I took one many
Mm,
years back, and getting involved in the industry, just go hang out and just get involved. Submit some story ideas, take some photos, mentor some women, talk to other women, join some groups, go to women's events, go to bike
mhm,
bells, go show up. People are very inviting, and they're very, most people that I know
mhm,
are there to help you and to mentor you and to come on, let's go for a ride, or just there's so many places and so many women riders now is a great. In fact, that was my magazine, Harley Women, turned into morphed in a couple of times into print magazines, and now it's called Women Riders Now, and they do a great job. Place it,
right.
look on there and see where's an event, where's a join the leaders. There's groups, there's women everywhere. Look at Kelly's the wild ride things that you have
Mhm.
going on. And the babes ride out. My daughter is like, she knows how to ride. She rode dirt bikes. She's like, I really want to do that one where you go ride in the dirt. I'm like, well, maybe we can do it together.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's how I started. I started riding the dirt. But
Mhm.
we'll see. I don't know if the old body can handle the dirt anymore, but I can still get out there. Everything, like I said, everything I write, I have to kickstart now. So
With this being our interview with Respite Motorcycle Attorneys, one of the questions we love to ask, our guests is, have you been in a motorcycle accident before? And if so, what happened and what did you learn?
oh, that's a good question. I was in a motorcycle accident when I was 18 years old. I was in the back of my boyfriend, soon to be husband's motorcycle, and I think had some drinks. I broke my leg in two places. I'm lucky
Oh,
here. Missed a guardrail by about 10 feet, and he didn't get hurt at all, just a little scraped. But I think I learned a valuable lesson. Don't drink
mhm,
and ride. You know,
right.
wear the correct gear. I had some road rash because I wasn't wearing my gear. I had a helmet on, but I didn't. I had a t-shirt. I was riding in a t-shirt, and sometimes I do ride a t-shirt, but very, very rarely will you ever see me ride without gear. Without,
Mhm,
I always wear a helmet. I wear
mhm,
boots. I cover up my body.
mhm,
It looks cool to ride in your halter top and all that, but it's not so great if you fall down. So that I learned a lot about. And that's really the only time I was down in some fuel oil one time when my Sportster, when I was going around a corner when I was about 19, but that wasn't my fault. And
mm,
again, being aware, you can't see that stuff. Being aware, dress right, don't be
mm.
stupid, and be sober.
Yes, I think those are really, really good points, and thank you for bringing that up. I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, obviously accidents happen, but I think, as we all know, with anyone who gets involved in motorcycling, there's the risk and there's the reward of it. And I think for those of us who obviously it's part of our DNA and something we love to do, we see the reward. And although there are a lot of risks, and I think most of us have been in motorcycle accidents, whether or not it was because of something we did or truly was an accident. I mean, we're able to learn from them and grow from them. And, it's about becoming a smarter rider, right? It's about riding with, applying these experiences and the wisdom that you learn from them to become a better rider.
For sure.
And thank goodness for, entities like Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys who are there, who offer, assistance to riders who have been in accidents. And also, they have their free roadside assistance program. That's a community of, tons and tons of riders all over the nation here to step in and help one another, when we do come into challenges and tough times.
Are they having their anniversary? Their big
They
anniversary?
are, yes,
Really?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so cool. So the firm will actually be turning 50 years old in just over a year. And so the whole idea behind this podcast in general was to really get all of these incredible folks like yourself who have been in the motorcycle industry, in the motorcycle community, really highlighting them. So,
Thanks for including me. I really appreciate it. And I remember Russ Brown, I remember they were like the first. They really were
mhm,
the that really stepped up and
mhm.
motorcycle people. So I really appreciate that. I know they
Yes.
do good work. So thank you
Mhm.
guys.